Timoleon, son of Timodemus, of Corinth, was a Greek statesman and general. As the champion of Greece against Carthage, he is closely connected with the history of Sicily, especially Syracuse. Early life. In the mid-360s BC, Timothenes, the brother of Timoleon, took possession of the Acropolis of Corinth and effectively made himself tyrant of the city. In response, Timoleon, who had earlier saved his brother's life in battle, became involved in the assassination of Timothenes. Public opinion approved his conduct as patriotic, however the curses of his mother and the indignation of some of his kinsfolk drove him into an early retirement for 20 years. Sicily. Because of the political problems facing Syracuse and the threat from Sparta, a group of Syracusans sent an appeal for help to Corinth, which reached the city-state in 344 BC. Corinth could not refuse help, though her chief citizens declined to accept responsibility for attempting to establish a stable government in fractious and turbulent Syracuse. Timoleon, being named by an unknown voice in the Corinthian Popular Assembly, was chosen by a unanimous vote to undertake the mission, and set sail for Sicily with 7 ships, a few of the leading citizens of Corinth and 700 Greek mercenaries. He eluded a Carthaginian squadron and landed at Tauromenium in 344 BC, where he met with a friendly reception. At this time Hicetus, tyrant of Leontini, was master of Syracuse, with the exception of the island of Ortygia, which was occupied by Dionysius, still nominally tyrant. Hicetus was defeated by Timoleon at Adranum, an inland town, and driven back to Syracuse. Timoleon was sent reinforcements from Corinth and other northwestern Greek states. During the siege of Syracuse, Dionysius surrendered Ortygia in 343 BC on the condition of his being granted a safe conduct to Corinth. This was agreed and Dionysius was sent to exile in Corinth. Hicetus now received help from Carthage, but ill success roused mutual suspicion. The Carthaginians abandoned Hicetus, who was besieged in Leontini, and who was then compelled to surrender. Timoleon was thus master of Syracuse. He at once began the work of restoration, bringing new settlers from the mother city and from Greece generally, and establishing a popular government on the basis of the democratic laws of Diocles. The citadel was razed to the ground, and a court of justice erected on its site. The Amphipolos, or priest of Olympian Zeus, who was annually chosen by lot out of 3 clans, was invested with the chief magistracy. The impress of Timoleon's reform seems to have lasted to the days of Augustus. Hicetus was able to persuade Carthage to send a great army, which landed at Lilybaeum, with a miscellaneous levy of about 12,000 men, most of them mercenaries. Timoleon marched westwards across the island to the neighborhood of Selinus and won a great and decisive victory on the Crimsis. Timoleon led his infantry, and the enemy's discomfiture was completed by a blinding storm of rain and hail. Carthage made one more effort and dispatched some mercenaries to prolong the conflict between Timoleon and the tyrants, but it ended in the defeat of Hicetus, who was taken prisoner and put to death. Carthage then agreed to a treaty in 338 BC by which Carthage was confined in Sicily to the west of the Halicus and undertook to give no further help to the Sicilian tyrants. Most of the remaining tyrants were killed or expelled. This treaty gave the Greeks of Sicily many years of peace and safety from Carthage. Ruler of Syracuse. Timoleon established a new Syracusan constitution. It was described at the time as democratic. However, he did have wide powers equivalent to a supreme commander. He invited settlers from mainland Greece to assist in the repopulation of Syracuse and other Sicilian cities. During this period, Greek Sicily enjoyed a recovery in its economy and its culture. Retirement. Timoleon retired into private life after he became blind some time before his death. But when important issues were under discussion, he was carried to the assembly to give his opinion, which was usually accepted. He was buried at the cost of the citizens of Syracuse, who erected a monument to his memory in their marketplace. afterwards surrounded with porticos, and a gymnasium called Timoleon. Tyrant or democrat. The ancient historian Timaeus gave Timoleon high accolades in his work. However, Polybius criticized Timaeus for bias in favor of Timoleon, and many modern historians have sided with Polybius. Peter Green shares this skepticism but thinks it has gone too far. While he concedes that Timoleon tended to play the democrat while using the methods of a tyrant, he did make an effort to maintain the outward forms of democracy. Further, he reformed Syracuse in a democratic direction and demolished the stronghold of the island that had been so useful to tyrants in the past.